I like to get a good idea of the size and scale by making a quick sketch. To start off with, I'm going to use a bit of bronze. This bronze is about 8 inches right now. I'm going to work on isolating out the pin first. So what I'm doing here is tapering the ends. And this can be a little bit tricky when you're using bronze because it work hardens. So as you go, parts of it will firm up while parts of it are soft, so it's really easy to get it on diamond, and you don't want it on diamond. So you're gonna have to, be working against that. Normally I will forge things out square, but often with this I'm having to keep it fairly octagonal as I go. Just something to note when you're working with bronze and it gets small like that. This is me basically doing the cleanup on that, and I'm not really trying to get it perfect. I'm just trying to get it sort of isolated out so that I can come back to it. We don't know how long we need this pin until we actually forge the body of the brooch. As you can see, is kind of gnarly. It's not perfect, and that at this point doesn't really matter. As you guys know, I like to say it looks like shit until it doesn't. These parts might seem like they take a while and a lot of heats. Remember, you have to keep the heat low on bronze so it doesn't melt, so you don't get a ton of working time with it. So it's quick ins, quick outs, quick ins, without. Just be ready to move back and forth to your forge a lot. You do want to get it mostly tapered. It's not going to be perfect at this point, but it's going to be primarily there because it will still continue to grow once you round off the edges and finish that out. So now I'm moving to the other side, and I haven't cut the pin off yet because it allows me to have something to hold on to still back there. And I'm tapering the other end, and I'm going to put an abrupt taper, and then I'm going to start working toward there from the middle of that bar to the tip. And essentially I want the thickest spot to be in between, right in the middle of either end. So I want a gentle taper from the very tip all the way to the center part of that bar. See how I'm hitting softer at this point? You don't want to split the ends. I'm also twisting that. Notice in my left hand, my tongue hand was twirling. I'm rounding that all out and smoothing it. So as you get toward that tip, so you don't split it, just ease up. Don't go too hard on it. Lot of taps. Tap, tap, tap it in, Happy. Tap it in. The curvature of the face of this hammer is pretty gentle. There's a little bit there, so it will draw it out a little, but it's a lovely, mostly flat face, which is really great for this type of work. All right, so now I'm going to hot cut. Now I'm going to hot cut that off, So I'm gonna hot cut the pin side. This was the first thing that we did. I'm just gonna lightly take my little anvil devil and give a couple whacks. Bronze is pretty soft, so it doesn't take much. You don't want to go crazy with this. You don't want to mar up your hammer face, so don't go all the way through, and don't go through enough or have your hammer at an angle that's going to ding up your hammer face. Now I'm just going to take the pin needle, and I'm going to set a ledge in there and just isolate a little material. But for the most part, I'm just going to discard this and set this aside. So really, I'm just half-face blows, setting a ledge, and drawing out a little bit of a lip or a paddle. It doesn't have to be perfect at this point, just enough that you know you've got enough material to get around a 1/4 inch round circumference. It's going to have to be a little bit longer than that, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's good for now. I know it doesn't look great. Looks like a dog leg piece of shit, but it's perfect for now. So let's just put that on the floor. Gonna do a little bit of cleanup on the main body piece. This is working the taper on the other side. I think I've missed a little bit in the recording, but you saw it the first time. You're just flipping the piece and doing the same thing to the other side. And you try to get it as evenly as possible. I usually leave about 1 inch in the middle of the bar that I don't touch at all. Continuing to work this squared up, pushing material out toward the end, growing the length a little bit. Now I'm taking it on the diamonds and working octagon shape to it. And then eventually you'll see my left hand, my tong hand is going to start spinning that. And I'm going to work it round and 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 round. Notice how I hammer in the same spot. I just work that one spot. I don't have to chase my hammer all over the place. You can't be accurate when you're trying to move your hammer all over. Your left hand is your control hand. Your tong hand is your control hand. Your hammer hand is your power and your speed. The better you make it look here, the more time you take to planish the ends, the less work you have to do later. And look at that, it's pretty even, pretty nice. Whoa, back on the floor again. I dropped so much on the floor. And here I am, I'm gonna curl the ends over. So I start to get a basic curl going around my horn. Not very perfect, a little big. Now I'm going to fold that curl over. And just keep an eye on it, just keep an eye on it. Move your tong hand up and down to change the angle to get a curl the way you want it. Hit it from different spots. Now you can use the side of your anvil. Remember, that whole anvil is a tool, not just the surface. So use whatever you need to get that curl shaped the way that you want it. And for this one, I'm just doing a very simple curl over. You can get fancy. You can put leaves on the end of these. You can put crazy ass spirals that go in and out and around. But for this demo, we're just doing a simple curl. I'm flipping, doing the other side. Repetition is the key to perfection, right? So practice again. Just try to get them as evenly as possible, and you'll have a good looking brooch. Now, inevitably, one side is going to be a little different looking than the other. It's going to take a lot of, a little bit warm there. It's going to take a little time for you to get them perfect. Mine aren't perfect. I'll make a few adjustments to them just to get them to where I want to be. This is cooled down, so it's not moving as much anymore, so it's going to be really slight changes. So I'm trying to close that one end up, and then on the other end I need to open it up so I can stick it on the end of the horn, and it'll use the radius of the horn to expand the space in the middle of the curl. And then just kind of tapping it back down to the end closed. Now we're folding it over. Notice I'm not hitting the curl. Don't hit the curl. You hit the curl, you close the curl up, and you ruin everything you just did. I'm going to forge this to sort of a C shape. You don't have to close it up all the way in one heat. If you work these too hot, they melt. So I err on the side of, when I'm working with bronze, more heats to do an action is better than a melted piece in a puddle in the bottom of your forge. I'm staying off of the ends. Notice I flip back and forth to which tine I'm holding so that it works evenly. At this point I heat the whole thing up, fairly nice even glow. I'm gonna quench it. You might want to get to it a little faster than I did. At this point with bronze, you're annealed. So you can work this cold and with your hands. What I'll do is put it over my horn, squeeze it real tight, maybe take a couple taps on it. And then what I'm trying to do at this point is close it all the way up. But I'm also using the horn, I have a nice pretty round horn, to round off that shape to get it as symmetrical as possible. Right now I'm still trying to work the symmetry of it. You want it to be as evenly forged as possible. I'm flipping back and forth, working either side. I'm going to totally close up the joint right here. As I'm working this piece, it's already stiffening up as well, and that's why I've quenched it first. That way as I go, it's going to hold its shape. Every tap that I get on there, it's going to become a little more rigid. Now that it's totally closed up, I'm in a good spot, but I can't fit the center pin through there, so what I need to do is expand it a little bit. Great way to expand it, slip it back on that horn, put a couple taps around the back side of it. Look at that, opened it right up just a smidge. Now I'm going back to that pin we had earlier. Obviously it's wonky as hell. We need to straighten that out, get it forged around, so time to clean up that pin a little bit. These tongs are a little big for how small that piece is now, so I do send it flying a couple times, so just be careful. I actually have a pair of bent long extended pliers that I use from Harbor Freight for a lot of this. What I do is I just take one side, I carve a little round notch out of it, that way it can hold these tiny little pieces. I just failed to grab it in this video. And you're just gonna tap it in, tap it around, get it all lined up, get it straight, get it pointed. You want to make sure that you've rounded the whole thing off, so I'm going to start spinning it at this point, working it around in circles and just trying to get it as clean as possible. You know, I don't like to grind, so even on stuff like this, just hammer finish it. If you work your hammer right, you can get a really beautiful piece just straight off the hammer, no grinding. Here we go. We've kind of got them almost done. I've actually heated that up and I've annealed it, so I can now bend the pin by hand almost. So I'm fitting it. A couple taps here. 3, 2, 1. Yep. Always does that every single time. But I'm working that little paddle over that I forged earlier. Just get it to hang on that piece. Curl that around. Usually I would use a small hammer, like a little ball peen for this. But I love that Hilltop forge hammer. I use it all the time now. I find that if I've got that around, the other hammers don't get a whole lot of action. So once you've got that there, work it back and forth a little bit, make sure it's loose, and you're gonna move it to the side, take the straight peen part, you're gonna divot it down, because when it's holding the fabric, you'll want it to not be stretching your fabric. That's the whole point of a brooch. And then you curl over that other side, you got a nice, beautifully shaped pin. You're gonna slide it around the edge a few times, line it up, and there you go. You know, after this, it's all about just kind of clean up. You can either wire brush it or put it on the buffer. I think I'm gonna put mine on the buffer. Also, if you want to do a fancy one before you curl it around the horn like that, you could put reverse twists and stuff like that in, or any sort of chisel mark design. So just have fun with it. Here's a finished piece. It's lovely, isn't it? Lovely.